episode title for today, what we're going to talk about is rest as a wealth strategy. So not the sort of thing you expect your financial advisor or your accountant to be telling you, maybe, but hear me out. You're going to want to listen along to what we talk about in this episode. So the overarching theme is self-care, fulfillment and money's role in happiness.
Welcome to Breaking Financial Chains, where we combine practical money guidance with emotional healing to help you break free from financial limitations. I'm Tanya Riberson, your financial wingwoman.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Breaking Financial Chains. I'm so happy that you're here. Now, I feel as though I need to open this episode with a little bit of an apology. There seems to be something going on with my throat and my voice today. So fingers crossed it holds out for our recording. I'm going to do my best anyway. And then we're going to get right into it. I think a lot of people are going to resonate with what we talk about today. So buckle up and let's just see what you can take from what we chat about. Essentially, what we want to start with, this might feel controversial, particularly to high achievers. And it's around rest not being the reward. It's not a case of when I achieve X, then I can take some time off. When I can take this particular project off or this particular task off, or once I get past the end of Q2 and get all of my reporting done, or whatever it is that we need to get ticked off the list, once the kids are back to school, whatever it might be, that is not the point when you can reward yourself with some rest. Rest is actually the requirement for all of the great and many and wonderful things that you want to achieve. Without the rest being built in, being baked in to the everyday, the week by week, the month by month, the chances are we're not actually going to get anywhere near achieving those overall strategies that we have in mind for ourselves. Rest is not something that you earn after burnout, It's not the prize for surviving your to-do list. It's not laziness, it's not weakness, it's not indulgent, it's not selfish, it's actually very self-full. Rest is the strategy. So from a financial point of view, it matters a lot more than I think most people realise. If you think about how you function, how you perform and what your capacity is like as an exhausted person or as a tired person, or at the end of a heavy 5-day week or a 7-day week, or whatever your particular pattern of work is, those are not people that make calm decisions. Those are not people that are being particularly rational. You're tending to react rather than respond to situations, and essentially you're in survival mode. The patterns of behaviour that we see in people that are exhausted and burnt out are they spend emotionally. They say yes when they should say no. They say things to kick the problem potentially down the road when actually we're creating a much bigger problem in many of those circumstances. People that are in a place of exhaustion tend to stay in things for far too long, because doing the same thing that you've been doing feels easier. It feels like it takes less energy than actually making a change, than the effort that it takes to have those potentially awkward conversations, for example. So today I want to talk about rest. Not as self-care fluff, but as a genuine wealth building tool, because peace is profitable. And that's the overriding message that I want to get across to you today. Many good things come from peace, and profit and wealth are two of those most important things. Now, what I tend to see with people that I speak to and with clients is that high performers tend to resist rest. It's the capable people, the reliable people, the one that everybody leans on, or the ones that feel that maybe rest is uncomfortable. Perhaps identity gets tangled up in the usefulness of always being on it, with always being switched on. You feel valuable when you're productive, for example, in the same way as you feel safe when you're in control. So slowing down to some people high achievers, I'm talking to you, is what can actually feel like a threat. And then our nervous system starts to kick in and overrides some of those decisions that we might ordinarily make. Slowing down can feel threatening. It can feel like you're having some sort of guilt or shame attached to that, if there's a feeling of potentially letting people down. So it's that age-old, I'll rest when things calm down, I'll rest when I've got more time. But if your whole life is built on constant output, things never calm down. Rest has to become the decision, not come by accident or come by being forced upon you. When illness kicks in or an accident takes over and then you're forced to rest. We want to try and avoid that. So let's rationally and calmly think about what the financial cost of burnout looks like, so we can start to maybe notice if any of these things apply to you. And with that awareness, then you can choose whether you want to make any changes. None of these things are necessarily easy to do. They are very simple. I doubt that any of these are going to come as a surprise to you. And quite often you will hear them and think, yeah, I know that. Yeah, I know that. But when have you actually paid attention and implemented any of these things? So I would encourage you to just pay attention, take note, be super curious around what does come up for you. Because ultimately burnout, it can be really bloody expensive. It shows up financially through the impulse spending. For quick dopamine, for example, my ADHDers out there, I'm talking to you. It can show up with ordering takeaways or eating out more frequently than you might feel comfortable with, because the capacity to meal plan, to think ahead, to get some food out of the freezer, or to start actually prepping food and cooking for the family, is the capacity is just not there. It's completely gone. So it's about convenience for nutrition rather than a more economical option, for example. Burnout can look like really bad boundaries when it comes to clients and work, and when you say yes to things when you're already at capacity or without having proper foresight of what you've actually got in your calendar at the moment to be able to actually complete the work that you're promising. Have you actually got the bandwidth and the space to think this through? Missed opportunities because you're too overwhelmed. So not spotting where there could be easy wins or some nice low-hanging fruit, rather than assuming that you have to keep grinding and pushing and pushing. Burnout costs from poor decisions made from urgency without perhaps taking the time to look at all of the facts before you say yes to something, or before you push the button on one decision over something else. Looking a little bit more personally, it can look like health issues, which can create real financial consequences. If you're in a position where you're forced to not be able to work, you're forced to take rest, you're hospitalised in the worst case position, then you're not able to be on your laptop, you're not able to be face to face with your clients as much as you perhaps have set an expectation for. It can also look like staying stuck because you're too tired to plan. You're too tired to sort of lift yourself out of that situation and get that helicopter view that we really need when we're looking at our overall direction. So exhaustion essentially creates expensive behaviour. And if any of these things sound like a little bit of you, no judgment. There's no criticism at all. The point of listening to me talk through this now is just to notice if there's any of these patterns that you spot within yourself. Sometimes people think that they need a better budget, which would then solve all of the problems. Sometimes we think we need a nap, a little bit of a nana nap in the afternoon. Well, that's fine. That might help temporarily, but it doesn't solve the underlying issue of those patterns of behaviour and what we're continuously working in. So when we do start to build in rest, what starts to happen pretty much straight away is that the calmness, the peace that comes with rest, the peace that comes with the opportunity to just sit quietly and allow for those outlying thoughts to come in, is that it improves our decision making. So when our nervous system is regulated, financial decisions then also get to change. They get to be responsive rather than reactive. And there's a very fine line between the two. It's the difference between making a measured and an informed decision as opposed to a snap response to something, just to shut the problem up or to shut the kids up or to quiet down your other half if they're asking you continuously, have you looked at the holiday decisions that we're looking at, or have you looked at the choices that we've got to push the button on some work you're perhaps having done at home or something like that. So when we rest and when we're able to think properly, you're much more likely to think longer term. You're much more likely to hold boundaries and remember when perhaps some of these patterns have tripped you up in the past, and you can say to yourself, actually, I need a little bit more time before I reply to that email and say yes or no, because I've recently just come out of a period of being completely flat out and that didn't feel so great. When we rest, we're much more likely to tolerate discomfort without the panic spending. So actually sitting in the feeling and understanding perhaps where the feeling of anxiety might be coming from, or where we might be pushed to go down a old path from patterns. We're much more likely to negotiate properly. We're much more likely to ask better questions because we've actually had the chance to read through something properly. We're much more likely to leave unhealthy situations, whether that's in the workplace, whether that's a family argument or a dispute that you're having with a friend. We're much more likely to make strategic choices instead of emotional ones, which is the overriding theme, right? This is about continuing to hold on to access to the logical prefrontal cortex of your brain rather than allowing your amygdala and your limbic system to respond and react from a place of, I just need the noise to quieten down. I just need this to go away. I'm just going to throw some money at the situation because that's going to buy me some time in the short term. But what is that actually storing up for you longer term? So what we're aiming for is to create access to logical planning perspective when it comes to the decisions that we're making. So this has got nothing to do with woo or this isn't fluff. This is actual biology. Calm first, then clarity. The rest comes first before the burnouts and the bad decisions, and then we always can come at it from a place of informed logic. You're also much more likely to ask for help in those situations rather than feeling as though because you're carrying all of the things, you need to continue to carry all of the things and make these decisions on your own. And that's just not necessarily the case all of the time. What we actually want with the rest is to then build up the capacity to earn, build up the capacity to see the opportunities, to consider semi-passive sources of income, to consider collaborations that you maybe are a little bit blinded to when we're under duress or we're fighting burnout or we're just overwhelmed. Your capacity to earn is directly linked to your capacity to function. If your brain is overloaded, your earning power automatically is going to shrink. You're going to be in firefighting mode. You're going to be spending all day knee deep in your emails, responding and replying to emails rather than actually looking at the work that needs to be done to bring that income in, to build those relationships, which you're going to have a much better chance of seeing when you're coming at things from a rested place. So it's not that you're not capable or you're less capable. It's about the capacity and the bandwidth that we're applying to these situations is finite. We don't have an unlimited supply. We are not superhuman. And this especially applies to those overachievers that are carrying many, many roles, that are wearing many hats on a day-to-day basis, whether that's work and or business and or children and or other family relationships or caring relationships that you're perhaps having to juggle, relationships with friends, family members, invisible household management, and the emotional labour that comes with remembering World Book Day and remembering the school trip and remembering to take money in for children in need or whatever it is that's happening at school this week. You cannot endlessly produce from depletion. So the rest element that I'm talking about, that wealth building tool that you can and should and absolutely must build into your day-to-day, protects your income. It protects that capacity. And that is what makes it a financial strategy. This is not about taking time off. This is not about putting your feet up and just ignoring the world. This is about needing to recharge your batteries in order to be able to then continue to carry the load that you do. Rest is also a boundary. It's not just necessarily about sleep and not just necessarily about turning off at a certain point in the day. Sometimes rest is saying no. Sometimes rest is delegating. As I've already mentioned, it's asking for help. It's maybe not replying immediately to that email or that WhatsApp message that's landed on your phone. It's about maybe cancelling the thing that is causing you the most stress in the moment, if that's what will actually relieve or lighten that burden for you. It's about charging properly for the value that you're providing to your clients. It's about letting someone else be disappointed instead of continually putting yourself at the bottom of the list, about deprioritising yourself. And this is often the harder version of what rest looks like. This might require you to really look deep and change some inherent patterns that you're so used to running your life by, particularly for women, particularly high achieving individuals. We're often praised for self-sacrifice. We're often praised for putting everybody else ahead of ourselves. But when we look at it from a boundaries being profitable, rest being a wealth building tool, sometimes it's that unnecessary yes that costs us more, and therefore it can also cost us far more than money. It can cost us our health, it can cost us important relationships. It can mean that we do a lot more damage longer term by not considering all of the things that are going to be impacted by those short term snap yes decisions that we make in the moment. So what we want to actually do is think about some practical ways that we can use rest strategically, and I can share with you which of those that I do, which of those that I could definitely be better at. And speaking as someone with ADHD, some of these they need to be planned in advance. You know, some of these are executive functioning skills that we really need to hone, and it's sort of fighting against that fear of rejection, that rejection sensitivity that I particularly struggle with, that makes us say yes, that makes us keep making those time slots that we put in our diary smaller and smaller, particularly if that time is for ourselves. So leading on from that, one of the ways that we can build rest strategically into our every day, every week, every month is to actually build white space into your calendar. Whether that's white space or whether you make yourself your most important client. I find if I tend to leave white space, that then becomes a free-for-all for whatever happens to come in. Instead, I make myself my most important client. And that particularly I found useful many, many years ago. I had a very imposing and overwielding client who would make demands of my time, who, when I would look at my diary on my phone, on my Outlook app, she would be looking over my shoulder to see where the spaces were, to tell me where the gaps in my diary and my calendar were. So by actually putting myself in there with a code word or other similar, you don't have to put your name in there, you can think of an entirely different name. That meant that there was no way that she could know that that wasn't actually just for me. And it's about thinking about your time, and not every hour should be productive. Space creates thinking. It creates better decisions. So building in that time for Project You, Project X, Project Best Self, whatever that might be for you, give it a name and treat it with importance, in the same way as we want to be putting money dates in our diary and actually taking those seriously. This is the same. Rest for yourself is your most important superpower that we can work on and is completely free. So by protecting it, by making it an appointment, it's just as important as sleep, as getting some exercise, getting some fresh air, getting some quiet time, getting some alone time to actually recharge your batteries, particularly for those introverts amongst us. I certainly feel much better after I've spent some time on my own, instead of feeling as though I have everybody around me draining my battery on my behalf. These aren't optional extras, these are maintenance modes that you need in order to be able to continue working for those days that you do work, for those hours that you put in, and for the way that you show up for every part of your life as the amazing individual that you are. When it comes to recognising where that time goes, or rather not so much time, more energy, it's really useful to audit your energy leaks and notice when they happen. Who are you with? Where are you? Are there repeating patterns that you can start to notice, be aware of, start to make some changes? So in the same way as it's important to know where you're spending your time and you're building in white space in that calendar, auditing your energy leaks and asking yourself, what is draining me financially, emotionally, mentally? What is it that costs me, and what happens after I spend time with that person or I spend time in that environment, which then means I'm good for nothing for 2 hours afterwards, or I then actually can't concentrate enough to complete the tasks that I want to set for myself. Sometimes the answer is a client, sometimes it's guilt. We feel that we're eaten up in ourselves. Sometimes it's just yourself, we're getting in our own way. Sometimes we need someone to sit with us, maybe like in a body doubling situation or a co-working situation, to help you to see that you can keep going. You can work through some perhaps low cognitive tasks or a low drain on a cognitive level on your brain. So nothing high energy, nothing that's particularly too taxing, something that might be transactional from a financial point of view, or filing or admin, or making sure that you've got copies of notes from meetings, or whatever it might be, and doing something that takes up less thought so that you're still being productive without completely wiping yourself out. One of the things I see very often in my coaching clients is spending being used as a tool, as supposed recovery. Retail therapy is often exhaustion wearing lipstick with high heels on. If we solve the fatigue and we solve where those energy leaks are going, we might then be able to make better decisions for what we actually need to do to recharge our cup, to recharge our energy levels, to fill ourself back up, rather than, well, I'm just going to go and hit whichever your favourite website of choice is, for example, or hit the physical shops. Another thing to bear in mind, again, as high achievers, but also if we've got little people, or maybe not so little people in some instances, that are watching what we're doing, what we model for our children is something that we want to teach them, whether we like it or not, whether we acknowledge it or not. The fact that they're there and watching what we're doing, whether we're consciously teaching them or they're just observing our behaviour and our moods and the patterns, they're learning too. So this is a legacy for them. And if children grow up watching success always look like stress, they inherit that blueprint, and they will either assume that to be successful they have to follow the same path, or they're just as likely to want to run the other way and think, do you know what, if that's what success looks like, then that's just not for me. So they learn achievement equals exhaustion. And that is not a gift. That is not a legacy that we want to be passing down to the next generation. What if they saw that success actually equals peace? Success equals a cup of tea in the evening, sat reading a book, quite comfortably and not stressing over the deadline or reading emails. What if they saw that wealth equals boundaries and saying, I can do that work for you, but I'm not available until 8 weeks' time or next month or whatever it might look like? What if they saw that strength equals self-respect and self-trust? To know then that the decisions that we're making and the decisions that they're making are the right ones for them, because there is no textbook, there is no right and wrong way for any of these situations. We can teach them to trust themselves and actually take a few risks, particularly when they're younger, to grab those opportunities rather than being fearful of what might happen if they don't continue to do the day-to-day. So that then becomes a much better inheritance, especially for our girls, because in the grand scheme of things, we're relatively new to being able to get that bank account, to being able to get that mortgage without guarantor, to know that they can make that decision for themselves and everything's going to be okay. So I think the overriding message that I want you to take away from today, from this episode, is that rest is not separate from wealth. It is not a stepping stone from one to the other. We don't get to rest when we have the wealth. It is actually part of it, because the goal is not just to make money. The goal is to build a life you actually have the energy to enjoy. More income with the same exhaustion is not freedom. It is just a faster route to burnout. And real wealth includes space, health, peace, choice, and capacity to make decisions. Rest is not what happens after success. It's part of how success becomes sustainable. And that success and that wealth becomes part of the day-to-day and the week-to-week and the month-to-month. And sometimes the most financially intelligent thing you can do is simply to stop. So I challenge you. What would it feel like for you to just stop? That feels quite delicious to me. So my reflective question for you, I always like to try and end my episodes with a reflective question. So maybe take this with you on your next walk, get your journal out and just see where the pen takes you. Where in my life am I treating rest like a reward instead of recognizing it as a requirement for the life and wealth I'm trying to build? I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Please feel free to share, and I will see you on the next episode.
Thank you for joining me today on Breaking Financial Chains. Remember, you have the power to transform your relationship with money one step at a time. If this episode helped you, please subscribe and leave a review to help others find their path to financial freedom. I'm Tanya, your financial wing woman, and I'll see you next week.